Coming up on Global Business, China-Angola ties. Chinese President Xi Jinping meets Angolan President João Lourenço here in Beijing as the two countries upgrade relations. Money and credit. China's bank lending and money supply growth slows in February after record bank lending in January. And protecting consumers. China marks World Consumer Rights Day as the country seeks to raise rights awareness while also looking to expand consumption. And welcome everyone to Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong in Beijing. China and Angola have elevated ties to a comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership. The announcement came after Chinese President Xi Jinping met with his Angolan counterpart, João Lourenço, here in Beijing. Xi Jinping hailed the two countries' long-standing friendship. Now, last year marked the 40th anniversary of bilateral ties. The Chinese president said deepening mutual trust and cooperation benefits the people of both countries. He said Lourenço's state visit will inject new impetus into the relations. The president of the West African country is on a state visit to China from Thursday through Sunday. Well, Angola is among the African countries which have benefited from the China-led Belt and Road Initiative. Now, over the past decade, China has invested in Angola and shared its expertise in sectors such as water, energy supply, and green transformation. CGTN's Enoch Sikolia gives us a timeline of the growth of bilateral relations.
China upped its assistance to Angola in the early 2000s, a period marked by the country's emergence from a prolonged civil conflict and its urgent need for extensive reconstruction. The Chinese government came and accorded the African country substantial financial support for various critical infrastructure projects. Water treatment and transmission systems were built to help secure energy supplies and improve local living standards. Constructed by Power Construction Corp of China, or Power China, the Soyo Kapari Power Transmission and Transformation Project is the most extensive transmission and substation project in the country. It has the highest voltage standard, the highest voltage level, and the longest transmission distance. Since it set up its base in Angola in 2004, Power China has been involved in 360 completed and ongoing projects worth nearly $10 billion. These projects are across a number of sectors, including power, roads, airports, and water infrastructure. Indeed, Chinese entities have invested just shy of $14 billion in the African country over the last decade. The bulk of these investments are in energy. Other projects include the Kakulo Kabaka Hydro Power Station, which is referred to as the Three Gorges Project of Africa. This grand project is being built by the Hubei-based Gechoba Group company. The hydroelectric venture, positioned along the middle reaches of the Kwanza River, is approximately 230 kilometers from the capital city of Luanda. Comprising a principal power station alongside an ecological counterpart, the project is designed to have an installed capacity of 2,172 megawatts. Meanwhile, telecommunication is another sector which is seeing significant Chinese investment. Power China has invested $250 million in its infrastructure. Enoch Sikolia, CGTN.
Well, China has reaffirmed its dedication to implement the economic directives outlined in both the Central Economic Work Conference and the Government Work Report. During a State Council meeting on Friday, Chinese Premier Li Qiang emphasized that the country will prioritize economic stability and pursue progress while ensuring stability. He reiterated China's commitment to fostering technological innovation within enterprises and advancing the modernization of traditional industries. Premier Li also highlighted China's intention to bolster support policies for emerging industries and proactively plan for future industrial developments. Additionally, he emphasized China's determination to deepen reforms and further enhance its global openness. Well, China's central bank, the People's Bank of China, released its latest monthly financial data on Friday. Now, as of the end of February, the broad M2 money supply, encompassing all cash and deposits, expanded by 8.7%, marking a decrease from a previous reading of around 10%. In terms of credit growth, new yuan loans came in at 6.37 trillion yuan, that's around 890 billion US dollars, also slightly lower compared to the same period last year. Newly added total social financing, representing the amount of funding raised by the real economy from the financial system, also experienced a decline. However, both outstanding yuan loans and social financing remained higher compared to the previous year. Additionally, on Friday, the central bank opted to maintain the rate of its one-year medium-term lending facility at 2.5%. And China's foreign exchange watchdog foresees ongoing stability in the country's foreign exchange market. According to the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, or SAFE, spokesperson Wang Chunying, this expectation is based on four key factors, namely an economy that's continuing to improve through supportive policies, ongoing efforts to facilitate cross-border trade and investment by improving the business environment, enhanced managerial skills and rational approaches in forex trade by Chinese firms, and the likely easing of external liquidity shortfalls as major economies' central banks adjust their monetary policies. The forex watchdog also reported a positive shift in the net inflow of foreign capital into the Chinese stock market, indicating an improved appetite among foreign investors for Chinese equities. Well, to strengthen regulations and forestall risks to China's capital market, the China Securities Regulatory Commission today introduced four critical documents. These included dozens of measures to tighten IPO access, enhance regulations on listed companies, security companies, and publicly offered funds, and improve the discipline within securities regulation commissions. Here's what the CSRC said. Take a listen.
The purpose is to enhance regulation and forestalling risks to promote high-quality development of China's capital market. On one hand, we will improve the quality of listed companies and protect investors' interests. On the other hand, we will enhance discipline within regulators to crack down on corruption and illegal practices. We will enhance efforts to crack down financial fraud, particularly long-term and systematic financial fraud practices. We will also protect investors' interests, and if they suffer losses, we will support them in suing listed companies for compensation. We will also encourage insiders to report any fraud on the capital market.
All right, I want to bring it back now to China's latest credit and money supply numbers and bring in Qu Qiang, a fellow at the Belt and Road Research Center of the Minzu University of China. Qu Qiang, thanks for joining us. So, look, we had record bank lending back in January of this year. The markets understand that February, that's typically a slower month when it comes to loan growth. So, despite taking all of that into account, though, those seasonal factors, China's bank lending and money supply numbers for February, that still came in below market expectations. So what are your overall thoughts on this when it comes to money and credit for China's February numbers?
Well, I think this is actually, Michael, within our expectations. So usually we have our own reserve for the money lending in Chinese market. Usually in the very first months, which is the beginning of the year, all kinds of the businesses or the borrowers, they would like to nail the basic, fundamentals of the whole year fiscal plan, borrow the money to decide what can I do in this whole year. So usually the first months of the whole year would be very, very busy. That's the reason why we see January, we already break the record of the money lending or the social financing. But also, usually, we see another month will always be slow in the past few years because we have the Spring Festival. So this is very important factors in Chinese economy because before the Spring Festival, all kinds of the enterprises, they will usually receive their due receivables and then pay back to the banking sectors. So go through the long holidays and then re-lend the money out of the banking sectors and starting the next month after the Spring Festival. So fast and slow can be a very, a regular routine in the beginning of the whole year. And this year, I think we have a very, delayed, very much delayed Spring Festival with a prolonged holiday. So I think, and also this is overlapping with February, which is the short-term month with the working days. So I think that's a reason why delayed or slowed down the borrowing in the February. And I think that's the reason why central bank choose to issue the numbers combining the data of the January and the February together to see basically these 2 months together are still representing a phenomenal growth in the social lending. And also there's another factor is that for the monetary authority, central bank also themselves has a projection for the whole year social borrowing. So they would like to control the rhythm. For example, if it goes too fast and too high in January, it probably will take away or eat away the whole year's total lending numbers. So they usually will tighten up a little bit or slow down the rhythm in the next months, so the whole year's turbulence can be eased. So I think that's a reason why we see the numbers like what we have already read in the report.
And China's central bank indicated room for further cuts in the reserve requirement ratio. That's the amount of money that commercial banks have to park at the central bank, the RRR. So how does China think about the balance, you think, between supporting growth on the one hand, but also, of course, keeping a prudent monetary policy stance that avoids excessive debt accumulation?
Well, so first of all, we need to understand what is excessive debt accumulation. So in our economy, in the modern economy, everything is being driven by the debt. So in our view, so there is nothing called the excessive debt, but there are only excessive bad debt and good debt. So if you lend them like $100 and then you get $110 back, this is a good debt. But if you lend it out like $100 and get $90 back, it's a bad loan. So usually, as an economic decision maker, you usually want to control the excessive bad debt accumulation, but also encourage good debt. So that is how it works in the real economy. In China, I think one thing is that within China, the real estate market has already been stabilizing. That's the reason why we see from this report the household borrowing, especially the long-term borrowing in the household sectors, has been growing, which means people started to borrow money to buy a house again, which means they can be translated into the expectation that the housing market has already been stabilizing. But furthermore, we see the good debt are not accumulating as fast as we expected, which is, the new quality productive forces. For example, China would like to upgrade its renewable energy infrastructure, digital devices, and to put more investment in the research and the development. And this kind of borrowing are not growing as fast as we expected. Hence, you see the 30-year T-bond ratio is dropping a little bit, not growing. So we think we still need to have more of the cut in the interest rate as well as the RRR. And also another factor is that outside of China, Federal Reserve and the major central banks all over the world this year probably are all gonna reduce their interest rate together. So against this background, I think China has further space to loosen up a little bit about the monetary supply route.
All right. Let's talk about monetary policy transmission, Xu Xiang, because China saw its biggest RRR cut in 2 years in January. The benchmark 5-year lending rate that's referenced by mortgages, that rate was cut by 25 basis points last month. That's the biggest one-time cut. So given these moves and the recent stance of China's central bank, what's your outlook on the country's credit and money supply going forward, especially if China wants to achieve its growth target this year of around 5%?
Well, I think if we want to achieve the target of 5% of the growth of this year, so first of all, let's take a look at the expansion of the financial and the fiscal policies. Well, we have done a little bit of calculation. Last year, at the end of the last year, we have already promised a certain amount of the financial investment towards this year, which is 2024. And also, I think after the 2 sessions, we have already seen a very clear picture of the financial supporting the real economy. So together, we'll put the number. Probably from the central bank's perspective, we're going to see 1 trillion Chinese yuan worth of all kinds of facilities to support the real economy growth. So I think with this kind of the support, the interest rate or the RRR have a further space to going down a little further. And also we'll support and put into more of the vitality into the real economy. And also, as we mentioned, outside China, Federal Reserve, major countries, major economies, central bank were also loosening up the money supply. So which means the domestic borrowing environment will also be further improved. So that created a much better environment for our economy grows financially. And also, I think from the real economy and from the fundamentals, we have already seen in the Q1, not wrapping up yet, but also the number are showing the foreign trade of China, the trade surplus, has already seen about 20% increase. And also, I think the consumption sector, service sectors in China, like tourism, like shopping, wholesale, they also see very quickly recovery from the bottom of the year before last year and also last year. So I think this good opening of the year can guarantee, and also the good financial environment can guarantee that we reach the target of 5%. Actually, my calculation is probably the actual number fundamentally at the end of this year will be 5.2% or 5.5%. So it's probably going to be higher than the planners have already said.
All right. Many thanks for your thoughts as always, Qu Qiang. Qu Qiang, a fellow at the Belt and Road Research Center of the Minzu University of China. So indeed, China has set its GDP growth target this year at around 5%. Now, China observers are looking out for how the world's second largest economy intends to hit this growth target. CGTN's Zhou Jiaxin was at a roundtable where Chinese economists and foreign diplomats discussed the country's economic outlook. Take a listen.
During this year's political season, the two sessions, foreign diplomats in Beijing learned a new catchphrase, new quality productive forces, the strategy to reshape and drive the country's economy and development in years to come. Explaining the policies behind China's transition, economists said the world's second largest economy is now leaning towards innovation.
So new quality productive forces are going to raise China's total factor productivity, translating from mass production to high quality production. Right? In the long run, I believe this is going to pay off because the Chinese economy is going to move to a stage more relying on innovation and technological progress.
The ambassador said they believe China's strong political leadership plays a great role in its economic transition.
President Xi Jinping has just spoke to the leaders that new productive, we will have to develop the new productive forces. That means there should be a lot of productions. And if China became able to produce a lot of goods, that they can be exported, and China one day, very shortly, my impression is will lead the world in the economic field.
The roundtable also gave the diplomats a clear idea of China's growth potential.
China's economic growth has not plateaued. If there is more potential of economic growth, then we can see more collaborations to be established, trade activities, economic activities to be forged. We can see that there are pragmatic and very structured approach by the Chinese government. And countries like Malaysia, we have a good economic framework to engage with China. I believe we will definitely benefit from all this approach.
Many economists have estimated China's growth to be higher than the government target. With productive forces eyeing greater efficiency, the country remains the driving force for global economic recovery. Zhou Jiaxin, CGTN, Beijing.
Well, March 15th is World Consumer Rights Day. China Media Group is holding an annual gala to mark the occasion and to help raise public awareness. Now, this year, the theme is Integrity for Security. The China Consumers Association, meanwhile, has launched a smart platform for consumers to register their complaints and for businesses to address these complaints. Consumer rights events have been organized across the country as well, and over in Datong in North China's Shanxi province, nearly 40,000 items, including fake drugs and alcohol, were publicly destroyed. Now, as it's crop planting season, law enforcement officers over in Xiangyang, Hubei province, cracked down on the sales of fake seeds. Now, when considering coffee consumption here in China, Shanghai often comes to mind as the world's coffee capital, boasting a high concentration of coffee shops. Now, in this traditionally tea-drinking country, it's interesting to know that China has now become one of the largest consumers of coffee. In numerous small cities and counties across China, residents now wake to the aroma of coffee every day. Our Shi Yi has more.
In the afternoons, Wei Wei's weekdays are marked by gross parties with coffee, forming her daily routine. She is one of the local young coffee lovers of Taihe County in northwest Anhui Province. While the county is renowned for its noodles, Taihe Banmian, it may not be widely known as a famous location in China. However, the current scene in Taihe reveals a rise in the number of cafes, which mirrors the increasing influence of coffee culture within the region, following the footsteps of local younger coffee consumers.
This is the central zone of Taihe County, and the building behind me is the Wen Temple, the popular tourist attraction with over 700-year history. And now this place is surrounded by various stalls selling drinks and snacks, and walking along this not-so-long street, I can see at least 6 coffee shops, including beverage chains and also the independent local cafes.
陌上花开, a cozy cafe adorned with flowers, has been a beloved fixture in Taihe for the past decade.
然后当时县城是没有咖啡馆的，就想着把这个新兴的咖啡馆带到我们的县城里面，让大家都感受一下它的小美好。和大城市相比，小县城它有它的优势，就是它的圈子相对要小，而且更有人情味儿。他们一般大家的生活比较安逸，到店的空闲时间也比较多，而且大家都是从普通的客人一直到慢慢的熟悉到朋友。每次他们过年的时候都从五湖四海，然后回到我们店里，然后就觉得当时上学的时光，回忆一下。这个是我们的2店，是一个熟客给我们画的。
啊，好漂亮！
这个就是我们的2店。
这个整个都是你自己设计。
对，整个的话就慢慢的往里面添加进去东西，像种的各种树呀，也是想着1年4季都有花开。我觉得县城它不一定真的需要咖啡，但它真的需要一个咖啡馆。然后我觉得开一个这样的店，还挺有价值的。
In another coffee shop with just 1 year of operation, the young owner has distinguished her store as a unique and professional one. She sources high-quality coffee beans globally and personally roasts them every night, considering it the perfect time for this process.
你现在在做这个是什么？
太和骡子，
太和骡子，
店里一款招牌特调。
所以这个配方是你自己研究的？
对，就是试了那喝到吐，才研究出来一款。就是做一款产品出来真的很难。
我刚看你一直有用那个小秤。
意式的咖啡机它是差2秒给快2秒都不一样，它的这个口感是不一样的。每烘好一只豆子，我都会自己要去试一下，杯测一下，然后调整一下研磨度、参数，冲出来好不好喝，然后都要自己去尝一下。主要是因为感觉年轻人就像我这个年龄段的没有地方待，感觉一定要做一些就是我们自己家乡的一些好乐一些咖啡。当回到小县城里面，节奏能慢下来，就不需要太卷。
In fact, Chinese counties and small cities have emerged as the new battleground for coffee businesses. According to a report by Jingdong.com, the per capita coffee consumption growth rate in county markets in 2023 was 26% higher than that in first-tier cities. In Taihe, major coffee and beverage chains, including the recently opened first-ever Starbucks branch in the county, are easily accessible. This industry giant has been focusing on Chinese lower-tier cities to drive coffee market growth in recent years. According to their data, over 70% of the new city Starbucks has entered in the past 15 months are lower-tier cities. Coty Coffee is also one of the major players.
那中国的县域城市或者说下沉市场呢，近几年由于整个互联网经济的高速的发展，所以的话呢，人们在消费观上以及对新鲜事物的接受程度上，其实丝毫不亚于这些高线城市的。目前的统计，中国应该是360几个县级市。那我们的咖啡门店其实已经进入到其中包括324个的城市里面去，所以整体的覆盖上面是非常下沉。
Well, the counties hope their coffee industry can generate a buzz, but will it last long or is it just a flash in the pan? Now it's 9 a.m. in the morning, which is usually the peak time for coffee buyers in most of the big cities as they head for work, but there are not so many coffee orders you can see in Taihe County here in the morning.
And the staffs here have mentioned that they notice a gap in sales between holiday periods and regular seasons.
我们旺季的话是将近600杯，然后淡季的话，像现在是差不多300杯。
要翻了，过年1天的营业额能算平时的1个周、1个星期。
我的生活可能就是节奏比较慢，然后我个人的话就比较喜欢那种口味稍微偏甜一点的。
就是你的生活不太需要咖啡因。
对，不太需要。
And meanwhile, some remain a high level of optimism regarding the broader outlook.
并不是昙花一现，它会始终稳步的向上发展。
目前呢，太和县城区呢有28家这个咖啡门店。未来呢，我认为这个县域这个咖啡市场呢，这个市场发展的前景会非常广阔，会成为这个部分人群是包括我这个生活呢不可或缺的一部分。
So, what is the future of coffee in the counties?
Let's just enjoy this moment of coffee and wait for the answers.
徐一 CGTN 安徽 Province.
A promotion event for the second China International Supply Chain Expo was held this afternoon here in Beijing by the China Council for the Promotion of International Trade. And that expo, scheduled for the end of this year, will feature a new section dedicated to advanced manufacturing. Our Ho Jing reports.
At the promotion event for the second China International Supply Chain Expo, held on afternoon of March 15th, it was announced that the expo is scheduled to take place from November 26th to 30th this year in Beijing. With the overarching theme of connecting the world for a shared future, the expo will feature a new section dedicated to the advanced manufacturing chain, complementing the existing 5 sections focused on clean energy, smart vehicles, digital technology, healthy living, and green agriculture. During the event, around 50 representatives from both China and overseas nations were in attendance, actively engaging and signing agreements for new cooperation projects.
Many exhibitions just showcase goods and services, while the Supply Chain Expo showcases the supply chain, the upstream, midstream, and downstream enterprises and their products to consumers. The purpose of Supply Chain Expo is different. It is not only focusing on the volume of orders achieved, but also paying more attention to whether there can be further communication and integration between the upstream, midstream, and downstream of enterprises after the expo.
Our first show was so good that we will expand our show. We're in the meat processing business, and we were very busy. We had people coming to us from all around the world, and we met many other people from other companies that were also exhibiting. So it was a success both ways. We import and we export.
Following the signing ceremony, a banquet was hosted to facilitate additional communication among the representatives, fostering connections across different supply chains in anticipation of the upcoming second expo scheduled for this November. Ho Jing, CGTN in Beijing.
And with that, we're going to wrap up this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong here in Beijing. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next time.